Brandon, Shelton, we are recording, and I am excited to be talking to you about your story today. One, because I am a huge admirer of the service that you have provided our country, and I greatly appreciate it. And I think it's important for the world to hear the stories of our military, and really why you're also moved in the direction that you have with FTX Capital in supporting and funding military found organizations, startups. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your story, and we'll kind of go through some questions that I think it would be really helpful for people to understand and learn more about you, and also FTX, and how people can come towards, if they're military former veterans that have a startup. You'll share a little bit about what you're looking for, and let's help people understand how they could approach you as well.
Well, sure. Well, to correct, we're not the crypto trading FTX. You've said that a couple of times. We're TFX, Task Force.
Sorry.
It's okay. Although the FTX guys have a lot of money. In the military, we would use FTX as field training exercise, which is hilarious.
That's right. I'm probably raining in my head. Yes.
Yeah, no, I could be happy to be on. Happy to tell my personal story. So my story, I think is important. Origins are important. I was born in my early childhood, was raised in a small rural town in Virginia. My family, my mom was a public school teacher. My dad had flown helicopters in the early years of the Vietnam War. My uncle was Air Force. And then when we were 10-ish, we moved to Richmond, Virginia. So my mom could continue teaching, and then my dad to join the Virginia Air National Guard and keep flying, and so on and so forth. So I ended up doing, middle school, high school in Richmond, Virginia. And I ended up, for college, that's kind of an interesting component. So a lot of what, Teresa, we talk about at TFX is really related to just the overall veteran transition, not challenge, but ecosystem that's been around for really decades.
Yeah.
So one of them is that a lot of folks who go into the military do it at 18 out of high school or whatnot to pay for college. So the GI Bill, or Army ROTC, I'm not Army, ROTC across Air Force, Army, and Navy, or they go to a military academy or something like that. And that's where I found myself. College was going to be really expensive for my family. I knew the burden was going to be on myself to try to figure out scholarship and whatnot to go. I'm also, since Top Gun is out right now, I was also the Top Gun generation. I was 10 when that movie came out, and so the moment I saw that, I said, I wanted to go to Duke University just because of the basketball team. They had an Air Force ROTC where you could fly. I was like, that's it. I'm going to go fly and go to Duke, and everything's going to be grand. And didn't get into Duke, and did not get it Air Force ROTC scholarship. So Plan B emerged, was University of Richmond in my backyard, and that's where I was successful to get in, and thank God I did, because I loved it and have lifelong friends from there. But they only had Army ROTC. So like when you ask people, which branch did you go into, there sometimes it's a little haphazard like this, like, well, I just needed a way to pay for school. Military's military. They had Army, so I did Army, right? And so I ended up getting a multi-year scholarship at Richmond, and helped pay for the bulk of the cost. Graduated in 98. So I served on active duty from 1998 till 2004. I straddled 9/11, and so very interesting. I was an airborne infantry officer. Got to hard to get to unit in Europe that jumped out of the airplanes, and I'll never forget getting there. And we were like 70% staff, didn't have enough money for training and bullets and whatnot. And so that's part of the mid 90s, late 90s military drawdown. I was really shocked. I thought, oh my gosh, the military and high-speed units had ample amounts to train. And then, of course, I was in Europe when 9/11 happened. That was quite impactful to be on active duty when that happens. And then literally within days after 9/11, we became fully equipped. We had all the people we needed. It was pretty crazy. Wow. I also switched from infantry to military intelligence. So I came back to the States for retraining. So we ended up doing 6 years. Most important part of my service period, aside from paying for college, was that I met my wife. She was one of a handful of female officers on our little base. She was amazing, collegiate swimmer, great officer. And it was great because we And when we were dating, we could travel over Europe as young people and stuff like that. And it was great. She didn't really want to make a career out of it. And so I was starting to get frustrated. I had raised my hand to try to go forward and, made it as far as CENTCOM in Florida, had a great role down there. But I just knew that I no longer longed to stay in the military, but I wanted to honor my commitment. So left active duty in 2004 with her. She's from the New York area. I want to go to New York City as well because I want to go work on Wall Street. That was my plan B. I'd actually studied capital markets in undergrad, and it was a great fit. So I did 2 more years in the reserves to fill my commitment. And so part of the TFX's learning kind of starts right there. A couple years after 9/11 in New York City, interviewing for a bank. If you know anything about banking in 2003, 4, 5, it's a gold rush of people hiring, and I couldn't have had more tailwinds. Right. And when it came time to interviewing for the multiple roles on the trading desk, I was offered a 22-year-old's job at age 28, and I didn't understand that. I didn't reconcile that, and it really it just inflamed my drive, intensity. But I also became really pessimistic. I became very edgy because at the time I thought they were being disrespectful, unpatriotic. They were underestimating me. Fast forward now, no, it's they were just fine. Morals were fine, values were fine, process was legitimate. They just didn't understand my background. No matter how many words I used, how good my resume looked. This is pre-LinkedIn, and that story plays itself out right now. Today, while we're talking, this issue is at hand, and
it's the military experience and background that they didn't understand. Is that how? Yeah, which I agree is for veterans has been a real challenge.
Well, it's the civil military divide, right? Yeah. So as our country continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger, the size of the U.S. military actually since 9/11 stayed about the same. It's been range bound between 1.3 and 1.6 million. About 250,000 folks go into the military every year, and about 250,000 leave. Thus, they become veterans. That's the natural turnover, natural churn, right? But the U.S. population is enormous. Generally, also speaking, is military pulls from middle and lower income families from all 50 states. There's a lot of sub-studies in there as well. It's about 85% male or 83% male, 17% female. So in some places, it's incredibly diverse, and in some places it's not. Regardless, though, statistically speaking, you have a very small part of our population that goes in through this unbelievable multi-year path of service. Where you are pressure tested mentally, physically, emotionally. You were taught extreme ownership and accountability from the outset. Again, imagine all this when you're 18, 19, 20, 22, right? The brain not being formally formed until you're 25. And so it's a highly, highly, highly impressionable time of your life. This is why most veterans never stop thinking about their service period later in life. Now, some people are unable to turn the page. They just live based on what they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Others ignore it and hey, I was me then, I'm now this person here. And then you have others kind of in the middle where I am, where I'm super proud of what I learned in the military. I'm proud of my service, but there are certain things that I learned that I can use now to be effective business person, teammate, leader, spouse, parent, things like that. And so I kind of look at it that way. But that was learning number one back in 2004.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask a question. What I'm hearing is that you always seem to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Have you always been that sort of thoughtful individual to come up with these sort of goals and plans and always have that backup?
I'm for those that know me or if they're listening to this, I'm a hyper intense person with zero patience. I'm a deep believer that your origins shouldn't determine your outcomes. I'm very righteous as well. So when I see things that are wrong or, tribalism or, seriously unfair ecosystems, which venture capital can be at times, right. It's a call to action. And so when you think about how do you take action when you don't have all the resources, you have to break the problem down into buckets.
Right.
I am that way. So they talk about another one. I wanted my ideal goal when I left active duty was, I want to go to Duke's MBA program. It was a top MBA program. I'm gonna do a couple years in New York, learn Wall Street, and then I'm gonna go down to Durham for 2 years in the full-time program. Well, when I took this role, I'll never forget talking to my spouse. I was like, these folks, they I'm behind schedule. They gave me 0 credit of leading teams around the world.
Huh.
And again, I
Yeah.
was a little angry, and I was, chip on my shoulder grew bigger, but I
Hmm.
was so fearful of stopping my clock and going to
Right.
business school. So in talking to Duke, I said, yeah, well, we have this amazing executive program. So I ended up doing that. So from 2004 to 7, just put my head down, worked as hard as I could, started and finished a global MBA from Duke, which was amazing.
That is amazing.
Ended up networking over to Bear Stearns. If you know your history, it
Yeah.
seemed to be a fateful move in 2007, 85-year-old bank. I could actually get to a revenue generating role. Yeah, it's like, wow, I actually did it. I hand transitioned myself manually coming out of the military to a role that I wanted. I had to take on a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifice, but I did it. Fast forward to March 2008, 2 weeks before having my first child, Bear Stearns explodes.
Yeah. Oh my
And
goodness.
we exploded because we have a complete lack of leadership. When you have between myself and the CEO and I was a very junior person. You basically had a lot of people in leadership, people management roles just because they were the largest earners for the business.
Right.
They've never managed a true P&L or operationally developed talent and things like this. So under great stress, these type of individuals fall apart, and that's what happened to us. I knew I needed to leave Wall Street, but this is lesson number 2 in summer of '08 was all my networks fell down.
Mm.
I mean, there was real skepticism and I think fear in the New York City area and Wall Street that this is really bad. Like the problem is inside of us, and we're going to bring the whole economy down. And so the one network that stood tall was actually the Military Connected Network. And I never thought to use something like this. Again, LinkedIn was just coming online in 2008. And veterans on Wall Street had been around for a few years and really took, after 9/11, really took on some serious, meeting cadences. So I'd been to a couple of things like that, but I never identified as a veteran. As crazy as I sound, my brother was a Marine sniper. My sister married an active duty Army guy. So my wife was military, former military, but I could never I don't have stickers on my car or any of that type of stuff, right? So it was kind of novel for me at the time to say, hey, I can just reach out to people, and you served, I served. Let's just have a conversation, and people will give you trust.
Was that a fear of what you felt people were judging a veteran to be versus, or was there any reason why you weren't using it?
No, I think every veteran in the United States reconciles their service for themselves. So if you met one veteran, you've met one veteran, right? So, and there's all kinds of politicization of the military community, especially recent parties and stuff like that. Everybody and a lot of politicians, and like they want to do the photo op with the veteran. And you also have 42,000 veteran nonprofits that have been running around.
So many. Yeah.
Probably 41,000 too many.
Wow.
It's the last 20 years telling, most people that veterans have PTSD and TBI and are homeless, have all these other issues, when you should be celebrating, though, there's unbelievable talent and skill set here. Like Bunker Labs does, and some of these other organizations, like you just need to figure out a language set to understand their background. So get their origin story, their military leg of their story, and then whatever else they've done. You just can't reconcile the military side. So it's a black box for you. So what you do subconsciously, the study says, you give a 0. You don't mean to. You say, thank you for your service, but I can't even engage in you, right? And so I think that all that goes into it, Teresa.
Yeah.
But I mean, I started at that time. I was 4 years off active duty. I had big goals, big dreams, and very ambitious. Like I said, 2 weeks later, we had our first child, and it was sort of, okay, I just need to hustle and figure this out. Networking is not necessarily something that's systemically taught or encouraged in the military. That seems to be true for my dad's generation, my generation, and the young guys now. But very powerful in the commercial sector, right? Who do you know? Okay, let's talk to people. Let's be, even if you're an introvert, let's spend the time and get to know people. And that was quite special. We spent a lot of time with our founders telling them, never underestimate who someone knows. So if you keep broadcasting your needs, I'm looking for talent this way, hey, I'm looking for an intro at this company. If you just look at their bio or their title, you may say, well, they don't know anything about my industry. Yeah, but their sister is at that, your customer, right? And so that's the special part of the military connected ecosystem, is that, I think generally professionals of most stripes will help you if they think you're a good person, right? But I'm only going to offer you my professional contacts.
Yeah.
In the military ecosystem, we offer a personal and professional. It's quite
Okay.
special. And
Yeah.
so that's how I got off of Wall Street. I ended up joining a consulting firm started by a British Royal Marine special operations guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of firms like this now, but they teach C-suites how to plan and execute like military teams. I
Yes.
thought I'd only do it for a few months. I ended up doing it for 4 years, loved it, met some great people. That opened a window for us to move
Yeah.
out of the New York City area. And we just picked Charlotte, North Carolina, where we are. A Marine buddy of mine lives here, and we wanted to move out and raise our kids, kind of in this area. So
Yeah.
I kept doing that consulting. So, heavy duty travel. 2012, my largest client had hired me to come inside and be an in-house transformation growth person, which was really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my frustrations as a consultant, is that I always generally leaned in too hard, too far, like, because I wanted to help, and a lot of times the situations we were brought into, things weren't working well.
Right.
Some leaders were not in the right spots. And so by working with us, it sort of shined a light on all that. So by being a P&L owner and being there day to day and getting around that was amazing. Again, a lot of heavy duty travel, because the company was based in Chicago. Made a lot of mistakes. Wow, made a lot of mistakes.
Isn't that what life's about, though?
Oh my goodness, I think I learned like 10 years of mistakes in 3 years.
Yeah.
But ended up leaving in start of 2015. They were a lot of the work I did and a lot of the work a lot of the other teammates did led to a merger.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. So it took a $3 billion business and made it, I think, into 7 or 8 billion. And that was kind of burned out, Teresa. By this time we have 3 daughters,
Sure.
heavy duty travel for 7 years every week. And I'm a high intense guy. So when I would travel, it would be like every minute has been, operationalized. And so left on good terms. I've stayed on as advisor with them. That opened the window for TFX, and that's kind of learning number 3 that led to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I looked at June of 2015 as our birth month.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Thank you. But from like February until June, I started doing some networking in the Charlotte area, and on 2 fronts. One is on the veteran front. There's a bunch of veteran nonprofits and stuff here in town that I could never attend their events. And number 2, I started talking with the Duke MBA network here.
Sure.
Through those networks, I started gravitating towards founders. Mm-hmm. So both non-military and military founders in the Charlotte area doing lots of different things.
Yeah.
And I remember my last corporate role, I interfaced with a handful of founders just based on our work. And I was always fascinated, like, wow, man, in your 30s and 40s and 50s, you're willing to step up to the plate and take a shot. Like, I don't even know how you form an LLC. Now I think it's comical. I could form it in an hour, but like, I just, at the time, the perception is like,
yeah, sure,
the boldness that you have, like the risk that you're taking with kids and everything else. And so I said in town, I said, hey, I spent some time in finance, consulting, and enterprise. Can I help you? Right. That led to me having multiple conversations with local veteran tech founders. Mm-hmm. And then I started unpacking their capital raising process, and they're like, why is it so hard? And they would tell me, and I started studying the VC industry, and I started looking at them and they started naming certain VC firms and certain individuals. And I started noticing that it's very monolithic, generally white male, generally same schools and same zip codes. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it leads to severe bias in investing. And so this is why females are woefully underfunded, people of color, immigrants, and veterans. Yeah. And it's not just the bias, though, with veterans is our argument. What you're missing with that bias is that if you could understand their background, there's actually some character traits and skill sets that they have that are identifiable, that were trained from the outset, not when you were 40 years old in your first managerial role at Bank of America, but like, literally when you were 19, 20, 22, and we know the questions to ask. We don't say thank you for your service. It's more like, okay, what'd you do? Where'd you serve? And like the Israelis do, if you study Startup Nation, the Israelis have compulsory military service, but a lot of their business dealings, they actually will go back to the units you served in. Like, I'm about to hire Teresa. She's interviewed well. Hold on. I know someone from that unit 20 years ago. Hey, do you remember Teresa? I do. Thumbs up. Okay, good. That peer validation is there, but the traditional venture capital investor, angel investor, doesn't know how to get there. They don't know what they're doing. Like, hey, all they know is what they see in books and movies, which are generally Navy SEALs and other types of stuff, right? So I was like, wow, this is incredible. All this money going into this ecosystem. And then I stumbled on, and you have a lot of investors who can't digest your background and locate sources of performance. And then the last thing, which is where the light bulb went off, is that the SBA, Small Business Administration at that time, published, and they do this all the time, they published their census data, age census data, and it turns out, and it's still sustained, 10% of all small businesses in the United States are owned and run by a military veteran, yet less than 0.5% serve.
Yeah.
So there's an over-indexing there, right?
Yeah.
And so for most veterans that I talk to, this is, duh. Like, absolutely. Most civilians and definitely most investors I talk to about that, they don't understand. I've had an investor actually tell me, Teresa, I'll leave names out. Brandon, I don't understand. This is a highly professional institutional investor. He said, Brandon, I don't understand why veterans would make good entrepreneurs. They generally walk in lines and take orders. This is not an ignorant person.
Right.
This is someone who's well educated and is not super old, not super young, just right there in the middle. So there's these belief systems of what the military is or isn't. And then you kind of shake your head at that sometimes. You're like, okay, so this is not just hey, this is an underserved market, so we're trying to fill the gap. But there's actually performance that we're trying to connect here. It's not like a, hey, thank you for your service type thing, or wow, you guys are kind of like a nonprofit. It's like, no. We're trying to demonstrate this thesis that this type of leader, this resilient, durable leader inside of a startup will give you better odds of success than the average leader. And so when you stitch all my personal experiences together, this is how we gave birth to TFX. So somebody said, you should do something about it. You should go form a fund and go prove it. And so I don't come from money. And I never worked at another larger VC fund. These are normally the two origins of funds. And so, that's why in June of 2015, where I made the decision, like, I don't know how this works, but I'm gonna go form a fund and I'm gonna go make it work.
So that in itself is just such incredible inspiration for others that are out there, that you learned it. You probably got a good sounding foundation with your Duke MBA and working in finance. But the fact that you didn't know it and you just put a plan together and you said, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to figure it out and we're going to go do it. It's great inspiration for anyone, not just, veterans. That inspiration, where's that come from for you? It sounds family, but are there...
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give you a positive and a negative. So to answer your question directly is a positive. So what is the ultimate byproduct that we're trying to invest in? And that's a mission-driven founder, service-driven founder. Yeah. How do you define that? Now, if you look at a bunch of VC funds and their websites now, I think everybody and their mother has mission-driven on there. Yeah. So we actually changed to service-driven. Yeah. What does a mission or service environment do? And you know these people and you've lived it for moments in your life. I've lived it for moments in my life. Yeah. That's where you're part of something bigger than yourself, truly. Right. What is the average human's response to that? My heart and my mind work together. So yes, I want to get paid. Yes, I want a title, but I'm so infatuated to achieve the mission with this group that I will work extra hours and never complain. I'm going to wake up fired up.
Well, that is.
I'm going to 100%. You can get this. There's a lot of folks who've played sports. It's in moments. Right. And they always remember that team that they were on, or that nonprofit, or that mission trip, or that unit. So it's not all the time in the military. There's a lot of times when you're in the military that it's stupid, and inefficient, and there's bad leaders and blah, 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 blah. But there's moments where it's like, wow, for that 1 month, that one trip, that 12-month period, I was surrounded by the best of the best. And I was part of something bigger than myself. So if we think veterans, having been exposed to that at scale, that is ultimately what they're trying to resurrect in a 5-10 person startup. I need to get a bunch of people around me that I cannot afford, that may not have felt the problem, the pain firsthand, but they're doing this not because, I've always wanted to be, like, when people meet us and they're like, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's a red flag. You cannot be. This is an extraordinarily large risk for you to take to figure that out. Answer that question for yourself. Right. So for here, it's like, it's very easy for us to detect a service-driven, mission-driven founder. It's very easy when they talk. They talk with my type of intensity, my type of passion. I can talk to you at a strategic, operational, tactical level because I know the problem.
Right.
And I'm also a little stubborn, right? I'm a little, I'm bullheaded enough to have blinders on to some of the risks.
Yeah.
But when you walk away from this person, you may not agree with everything they said, some of the decisions or the market that they're going after. But what you say in private is like, she's not going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she's going to fight all the way to the ends.
Right.
So when the pressure is at its highest, she will survive. Right. And so that's what I'm trying to replicate at TFX. The people that are around us, if we were to meet our team, you should walk away going, wow, these are high quality humans. And they really believe in this, and they are working feverishly to prove this thesis out. And so that's the positive, mission driven. On the negative, though, it comes with a toll. And we talk to our founders all the time. So I myself, I've had to go get my own mental wellness coach in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the pandemic, but there's just this decline as a founder. You're just constantly under resourced,
yes,
constantly feeling the 24/7, 365 pressure, even when the thing works. Yes. So today I'm talking to you is a huge milestone in my company that's very positive today. And I have to remind myself to celebrate.
Yeah.
Because I'm already thinking about
that's
that
really
next
important.
element, right? And so we advocate for this with our founders. We have our own mental wellness coach at TFX that we provide to our founders, Dr. Ben. This afternoon, actually, we're doing our monthly session. Some participate, some don't. But we work so hard in the military or in US on making sure below the neck you're healthy and all this other stuff. What's above the neck? How do you show up as your best self? And so we have SEALs and others, some very accomplished, tough people. And I tell them all the time, like, this startup will break you.
Yeah.
It's the duration, 5, 6 years, all the time on top of you, right? So yes, I'm very proud that we're 7 years old this month.
Yeah.
But there has been a toll to get there. So it's not all roses and daisies. And
it's so important that stress, because when we meet with founders and when I'm sitting down with a startup, I mean, and like you, it's like you really hone in quickly on, are you just trying to, you think this is going to be a quick trip and you're going to sell it and make a bunch of money? Do you really have a purpose behind it? Do you understand the busier you get, the busier you're going to get? It doesn't slow down, it speeds up. And the stresses, it can be intense. This roller coaster is intense. And so for me, it seems like as a veteran, most veterans would be somewhat able to handle that. I know the mental side of it is really challenging, but you go through so many stressful environments that it would make you a compelling, or seem like that would be a compelling founder or someone to work within an organization that can drop in and know how to, all right, we've got to change everything.
Yeah. I think yes, I would say probably 90% of all the roles in the US military today.
Yeah.
Not all. There's some certain types of roles that aren't this way, but about 90%, you're guaranteed to go through some adversity physically, somewhere in your first 24 months.
Yeah.
It is part of the mission command structure is to equalize you and calibrate you and get a hold of your default behaviors when you're 18 years old at boot camp, you're 22 years old at officer school, all these types of things, right? So like for me, I know one of the hardest experiences of my life was passing Ranger School, which I barely passed. So for me, and I was 20, almost 23.
Yeah.
Super physically fit, blah, 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 all that other stuff. But like, it really rocked me mentally.
Yeah.
Like, it really changed my mindset. And I almost to the point where it was traumatic.
Yes.
Right. And so, we've got guys and gals who, I spent 24 months in Afghanistan. I've been blown up. I have TBI. I was in hand-to-hand combat with a terrorist. We've got the broad spectrum of that stress.
Yeah.
So I just think that I've walked out of the board meeting one time with one of our founders, and it was a contentious board meeting, and the business had a lot of problems. And I'll never forget asking him, I was like, "Hey man, how you doing?" He goes, "I'm good." And I said, "Tough day, huh?" And he goes, "Yeah, tough day." And I said, I said, how are you feeling about it? He goes, "Oh, this doesn't even pale in comparison to my worst day in Baghdad."
Yeah.
So that type of barometer, like, okay, I know my limit, and this is not my limit. So I should be making clear-minded decisions, and I should inspire my co-founders. A
Right.
lot of times the co-founders aren't former military.
Yeah.
And they're going to look like in COVID, when the pandemic was unfolding that April, they went and they said, I had, that hopefully that veteran founder is the one who is calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah.
None of our founders freaked out. They all just
Right.
worked the problem, right? Course of
Right.
action development, speed up your communication cycles, get hands on all my people. How's everybody doing? That sort of crisis communication, crisis leadership. The challenge, Teresa, is when you have to sustain that from quarters and years. I mean, the longest combat deployment.
Always, right? Not just military, veterans, startups, every startup, any company.
I think any startup, any company. So I normally have to fight a little bit with some of our founders, and I tell them, I say, hey, like your longest deployment in Afghanistan, how long was it? Oh, it was 15 months. Okay, great. Were you in combat every single day? No. Yeah. Most days, maybe, but not every day.
Right.
You're not in combat in your startup, but there's just no, hey, I deploy, I come back.
Right.
I spend 2 months training, and it's a much less stress environment. Then I surge into a stress environment. Here, it's just, you're in a less stress environment, but open-ended.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that where we try to encourage our folks, like, build the muscles now.
Right.
Taking care of yourself, making sure you're in this to win it. Right. Now, don't start a business and get 2 years in with outside capital and go, I never really wanted to start this business. Right. So,
yeah. And then a little bit of scenario planning. You plan for the worst and hope for the best. And if you're hoping, hope's not a strategy, but if you're planning for the worst, you're more likely to be able to create the better outcomes you need because you've anticipated, what if we have another pandemic? What if, the uncertainty in the world right now, if we're not scenario planning and thinking through some of the harshest things that could happen and how do we work through those, then we potentially are at a disadvantage.
Yeah, listen, I've been doing some light reading on the side around samurais and some others, but I mean, they would normally make peace with dying before battle, right? And they would write it down. And this is hence you see letters from World War II and stuff like that. And give a letter. I'm not saying you need to make peace with having your business blow up, but you should ask yourself your question before you ever take $1 of outside capital. How far am I willing to go for this?
Yes.
Am I willing to do this for 7, 8, 9 years?
Yeah.
Do I believe it in my gut and my heart? Am I truly mission driven on this?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. Let's go. Let's try to figure it out. Right. But I mean, there's a good chunk of founders we meet that are academic, especially veteran founders. Yeah. Who are academically trying to solve a problem. And the weird part is there's a whole bunch of former military folks, generally junior, that has struggled with this transition we talked about, struggled transitioning into a corporate environment. Mm-hmm. They're working with someone who's younger than them and has way less experience than them and is, in their estimation, a bad leader. They do it for like 18 months. They start getting themselves in their own head. Yeah. And they quit and they go start a company. I see this, I don't know, maybe it's 25% of all the deals we ever see are like this. You could just tell that they just refuse to assimilate in corporate America. So they're starting a business as a fallback versus what we like to see is, hey, I was in my 30s, 40s, 50s making great money at company A. Yeah. I have children, I have dependents, I have expenses, and I am giving up that opportunity cost to go make this happen. Right. That's a much better setup for us. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I totally agree. I wanted to go back to the diversity in the women, being a woman I was invested in very early on, women weren't getting invested in. And it seems in some ways we've not made a lot of strides because that was years ago. So, I mean, what advice do you, one, give women, and two, investors, and what do you guys look for? I mean, and not just women, but the diversity of those investments going out and funding. So could you talk through maybe some pointers that you would share?
Oh, well, two questions there. It's like one, what we're looking for in general, or two, hit the...
Well, I mean, I think how would you tell women, what do they need to come to the table with? What are you looking for? Maybe give some advice to women or diverse groups that are looking for money that traditionally haven't had the opportunity presented to them to be able to get money.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've actually never been asked that question, so I'm trying to backpedal here.
That's okay.
I think that the only thing you can do is you cannot change who you are for the purposes of solving some TBD playbook for some venture capital firm to fit into their box. So two things we normally tell folks is, number one, do your homework.
Yeah.
Most venture capital firms have a website.
Yeah.
And most venture capital firms that you want to work with put resources on their website. Who's on the team, who's in their portfolio, and what do we invest in?
Right.
But most founders realize that capital raising is super time efficient, and they get so frustrated by the process that they end up settling into everybody's the same. I'm just gonna fire a lot of bullets and see what comes back.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Show up curated, knowledgeable. All right, that's one thing you can control. You can control your skin color, your gender. I'm a veteran. You're not. I'm sorry, you didn't serve. I serve. Whatever. Doesn't. We're here.
Right.
That's one. I think the second thing is that I can't stress this enough, is you should not be starting a company and seek outside funding unless you believe it in your core that you are put on this earth to put a dent in the universe on this problem.
Right.
I think half of all the startups out there don't meet that criteria.
I agree.
So they either have a rich parent, they're wealthy themselves, they know a wealthy person, the barriers to entry of a startup are lower, it's celebrated. I got the skinny jeans, I take a picture, you're the man, you're the woman, you do the panels, you do this, you do that. So there's a lot of vanity and a lot of confirmation early on that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Until you get to that year plus mark and you're actually going before really professional investors and you're like, I don't know. I don't understand this, right? And you start to slow down and issues like that. Also, sadly, in the last 18 months, a lot of these companies got easy money.
Yeah.
Because there's so much money in the system. So I just think that, look, if you're a person of color, you're an immigrant, you're a female, you're a veteran, if it's relevant to your story or your business, I think you should bring it up. So like as an example for veterans, some folks want to build software to serve the veteran community.
Yeah.
Because the community they know best. I always tell people that's great. You could talk to it at an expert level because you are one. But I always say, okay, that's your initial target market, or this is the pilot because I'm going after this use case here. What other segments are there behind it, right? It's a business conversation once you're in the room. So if you're a domain expert and you're purpose driven and you're prepared, those are on you.
Yeah.
Then you have to play the game internally, but it is still a very inefficient process. There's a lot of VCs that I think take too many meetings and aren't fair with the founders. There's a lot of VCs who pass and don't give you the reasons why.
Yeah. And
then I don't know what it is about the venture capital industry. It exists with people investing in VC funds and funds investing in startups. The ghosting is unbelievable and frankly bad manners.
Yeah.
Generally accepted. I do not know why. Everyone is busy.
Yeah.
Everyone's self-perception is that they're busy. So have some personal discipline and follow up with a founder. So for us, we want to be reactive to you in the first kind of 24, 48 hours. We try to only want to take 1 or 2 meetings and let you know where we stand. It may not be the answer you want, but like as a fellow veteran, I would feel terrible if you were like, TFX is jerking our chain. So don't let that discourage you as a founder. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't have to tolerate it. You don't have to, well, this is just how the industry works, but sometimes that's just bad behavior. That's not because of you're a veteran or you're female or whatnot, but
so doesn't that beg to say that in today's culture, we really need to go back to this respect and just the humanity of business, that, it's better to know than not to know, wait and sit here and, not hear anything. And then you make the other person is feeling something out of no contact. So just a simple, we've looked at it, we're going to pass today, thank you, and here's a few feedback points. It's not that hard.
100%. And I would say that ghosting, when I say ghosting, this is someone you've engaged with.
Yeah.
They expressed an interest in the follow-up meeting. I'm not talking about the cold call emails. I get hundreds of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like, hey, we had a chat. You told me your process. You asked me to follow up in 2 weeks.
Right. And you didn't.
You didn't. Have some personal discipline. If you're a money manager investing in funds, unacceptable. If you're a fund manager investing in startups, unacceptable. Startups don't do this to their customers.
Right.
Because they
wouldn't tolerate it.
They wouldn't tolerate it. They wouldn't survive. But some reason, the general finance community tolerates this. So any founder, doesn't matter what your demographic is, you don't have to tolerate that. Now, if it's an investor you really want and you think there's an earnest reason why they've gotten delayed, something happened, yeah, follow up a couple times. But I know some of my friends have a 3 follow-up rule, and one of them who's a good friend's like, hey, I'm not chasing adults.
Yeah.
I'll follow up you 3 times. I'll give you, if I have your cell, I'll do 2 emails and a text over a month.
Yeah.
Me, I'm probably a little bit more like 2.
Yeah.
And then you move on, right? But no, when you're in the process and you're talking to them, any of those founders, again, assuming you're a domain expert and you are passionate and mission driven about your problem, everything else is just table stakes. I've got to have a professionally designed deck. I've got to be good at storytelling. I need to be rehearsed. I need to have done my homework. I have other people on the call based on the target. These are your things that you can control. The best thing you can get from an investor is they start engaging with you and just climbing inside your industry. Now you have, perfect. I'm an expert. Let me tell you about it like this. And a lot of our founders have expressed to us, sometimes I apologize for the amount of questions I ask because we invest in different industries. I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm not a domain expert here. And they're like, no, we just really enjoy when an investor cares enough to try to see it the way we see it versus sitting on the outside going, you should go left versus left, right. But that intellectual curiosity, you want to encourage that, so they can feel it the way you feel it.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. And we're just about at the top of the hour. Is there any parting advice, and you want to share how any interested founder might get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we're looking, and we're launching our 3rd fund today, so we can resume investing. But just like on our website, we're looking for B2B, B2G, pre-AA software startups. We want multi-founder teams who are domain expert, worked in those industries and have complementary skill sets. And very specifically, we want a former intelligence community, former veteran or former military veteran as one of the key founders.
Okay.
When I say key, they're generally making the trains run all the time. They're the CEO, COO. We will assess if they're high performing and all the other stuff, right? But come see us. We invest nationally. And we're very hands-on. We're not investing in tons and tons of companies. We only have 15 in 6 years or 7 years. But we try to bring our full task force to support you. So reach out.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. We'll sign off here. And it was a pleasure talking to you and learning your story. Let me stop our video.